Hello, good morning. Myself Anuj Jaiswal. Today I am discuss about B.Ed second year chapter knowledge and curriculum. Important question for B.Ed second year MDU and CRSU University Haryana Rohtak. Let's see question. What do you mean by knowing? Describe different ways of knowing. Or what is difference between knowledge and knowing? Meaning of knowing. Knowing is both a process and a product. As a process, it refers to the method of coming to know the phenomenon. Knowledge as a product is resultant of knowing the process. Knowing happens through perception, reason, and emotion, and codification are done in the language. Similarly, there are means of or source of every way of knowing. These sources are the knower is senses and mind. Different sources of knowing construct different forms of understanding and different types of knowledge. Difference between knowledge and knowing. Knowledge is the plain theory and knowing is the practical experience. Okay. Second, knowledge is an intellectual process while knowing is a spiritual emotional process. Third point, knowledge comes from acquiring information while knowing comes from ownership. Different ways of knowing. First, language. It is defined as a system of signs with meaning. These signs include but are not limited to letters, pictures, symbols, sounds, and gestures. Language is everywhere. Some aspects of it may even be universal. Language is really important for communicating knowledge despite its flaws. Second, sense perception. It is the process by which we can gain knowledge about the outside world. This way of knowing relates to the way a person uses and understands their senses. Traditionally, these people have thought that we only have five senses, namely touch, taste, smell, hearing, and sight. However, as time has passed, more and more senses have been suggested. Other senses that it has been claimed that people have include the sense of heat, sense of pain, of movement, of balance, and of hunger and thirst. Even a sense of where our body parts are in space has been suggested. Some of these might seem a little unusual. Third, emotion. There are two important views of emotion that tend to come up in theory of knowledge. One is called the naturalistic view of emotion. This view tells us that emotion is a result of our physical bodies with physical causes and effects. Charles Darwin was one supporter of this view. One interesting implication of the naturalistic view is that emotions are seen as universal and experienced across cultures. The opposite view to this is that of social constructionists. Reason. Fourth point. Reason allows us to go beyond the immediate experience of our senses. It is closely linked to logic, the deducing of valid conclusions from given starting points or premises. Human reasoning can also be inferential in nature, allowing conclusions to be drawn that cannot be strictly deduced from their premises. It then becomes an interesting question of whether standards of rationality and norms of reasoning are grounded in culture. Areas of knowledge might set their own requirements for the types of reasoning that are accepted. Inductive reasoning is the process of supporting general statements by a series of particular ones. The reverse or deductive reasoning, which tends to proceed from the general to the particular. Fifth point, imagination. It is often identified in a narrow sense as the capacity to form a mental representation of something without the stimulus of sense experience. Traditionally, imagination has been associated with imagery and making a mental image of something. However, more recently, interest in the imagination has also focused on exploring propositional imaging. Imagining that the importance and power of the imagination is highlighted by a number of medical conditions which impact upon it. Example, conditions which can impair imagination such as seizure, autism, or condition which can cause delusions such as shiver, schizophrenia. Imagination is sometimes viewed in a broader way as being associated with creativity, problem solving, and originality. Here, it might be the making of connections between otherwise disparate ideas in order to solve problems. This might be useful in model making or theory creation in the sciences and solving structural problems in the arts. Imagination is, however, also sometimes distrusted in part because it is regarded as something that is derived in the mind of the individual and therefore subjective. Next point, faith. The term faith is most frequently used to refer specifically to religious faith, but it can also be used in a secular sense as a synonym for trust. Although most associated with belief in a god or gods, faith can be religious without being theistic. Example, in Buddhism, alternatively, it can be seen as a commitment to a particular interpretation of experiences and reality, which is not necessarily religious at all, such as humanism. Logical positivism claims that statements of faith have no meaningful cognitive content, so it does not make sense to speak of faith as a way of knowing. However, for many people, faith is a key way in which they try to understand and explain the world. 7 point, intuition. It is sometimes described as immediate cognition or knowledge which is immediately evident without prior inference, evidence, or justification. Intuition is often contrasted with reason, as it is regarded as knowing without the use of rational process. Jung famously referred to intuition as perception via the unconscious, highlighting the idea that intuition is often seen as beliefs which are known without understanding how they are known. Intuition is sometimes associated with the concepts of instinct and innate knowledge. For example, some would argue that although we do not have innate knowledge of any particular language, we have any intuitive capacity to use language. Intuition has been much discussed in the field of ethics in terms of whether we have moral intuition or a kind of innate sense of right and wrong. It is also seen by someone to play an important role in scientific advances. 8 point, memory. Memory, and particularly habit, has a strong link to procedural knowledge and remembering how to perform actions. In contrast to perception, memory refers to things which are not currently happening, and in contrast to imagination, memory refers to things which we believe really happened. Some would argue that memory is not itself a source of knowledge, but instead is a process which we use to recall knowledge gained in the past. However, although memory refers to knowledge gained in the past, it can be argued that even new knowledge is dependent on and influenced by memory. For example, how we interpret new situation can be heavily influenced by experiences and previous events. In this way, apart from being a strong storage unit for existing knowledge, memory can also be a mechanism that allows us to process new and unique situations. The importance of memory can be highlighted by imagining the challenge that would be presented by losing our memory, because so much of our personal knowledge in the form of memory issue soundings The reliability of memory are also crucial. Memory retrieval is often regarded as unreliable example because it is seen to be subjective or heavily influenced by emotion. However, we rely on our memory every day, and because many of our memories seem to be reliable, this gives us confidence that our other memories are reliable. This video is most important for BEd second year, MDU and CRSU, Rohtak, Haryana. Thank you for watching this video.